Hey friend, Roger Christopherson here again with another first listen review, and this is one that I was very eager to babble about, talking about Bruce Dickinson, and I'm going to be babbling about some balls. More balls to be precise, more Balls to Picasso. This was his second solo album after The Tattooed Millionaire, and I remember very distinctly Tattooed Millionaire when that came out, how much I listened to that album over and over and over, and how much I couldn't wait for Balls to Picasso. It was, for whatever reason, I just remember it being announced like forever, and there was no like internet or anything back in these days. It was always like magazines, so you keep reading about it, and it's going to be released, so they had to go back in and do this. It seems like they made several attempts to release this album when it first came out. It was really hyped up, and then when it came out, I remember getting it thinking, all right, that was okay. And I know I listened to it a few times, but I really have not listened to this album in a very, very, very long time. And I'd actually kind of forgotten the songs on it. So when I saw that they were going back in and revamping it, and Bruce, saying that, he went through when he was redoing a lot of the stuff on his albums, remixing and getting ready to, re-release a lot of the stuff, he was never happy with this one. And I heard he was going back in and chunking it up and making it beefier and all that. I thought, cool, because I remember the other albums, that he came out at that time, like Accident of Birth and Chemical Wedding, how like heavy those albums sounded. And this one did not do that. So I was very curious as to what this was going to sound like. And I'll be quite honest, I was not disappointed at all. This one actually, starts in with Cyclops, which I honestly, until I heard it, I had forgotten all about this song. I was like, oh yeah, that's right, this is actually a pretty killer song, and it starts in just sounding huge. Yeah, so you had Brendan Duffy go in and help him redo all this stuff. And this was actually the first time he had done with Roy Z, although Roy wasn't producing it. He had his band, I think it was called Tribe of Gypsies, if I'm not mistaken, done all the music on this. And then somebody I'm not super familiar with, Shay Baby, had produced this album, done actually a couple. It was kind of the production style at the time, so I can't like say too much about it, but what they've done to it is definitely extremely improved. The drums on here just to sound insanely huge. He had a lot of guitar work added to this. His touring guitarist Philip Naslund, I really don't know how it's pronounced, and they had some keyboard and some orchestral stuff by a Brazilian composer named Antonio Tioli. I don't know, I never get the stuff quite right. And there's actually some horns in here in one of the songs, but I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, so like on the first one, like I said, super chunky. You could just immediately tell that this is going to be a different album already from the original, which I have the original, like I already mentioned, and like I said, I hadn't listened to it in quite a while, but this definitely sounds a lot bigger and thicker already. And then Gods of War, which was actually one of the songs I do remember from this. I immediately can hear the separation instruments and just the fuller, wider sound, like instantly. I didn't even have to go back and check the original to realize that that's what was going on with this one. And this pretty much stays consistent through the whole rest of the album. One song that I had really forgotten about completely was 1,000 Points of Light, which sounds great on here. The bass is way up front in this. It just kind of like it's filling up a void that it was missing before, and just really made the song sound a lot bigger. Of course, then Laughing in the Hiding Bush was on here, which was originally supposed to be the title of this album, actually. But of course, that one, once again, the drums are what really stands out on this one. It just gives that song a lot more depth and that fullness that basically, I guess, when at this point you're realizing that more balls is what he means. It's just bigger and thicker and chunkier. One song I didn't care for too much originally also was called Shoot All the Clowns, and this is the one that has the horn section in it, and funny enough, that actually makes the song sound kind of epic a little bit. Actually, and it's performed by the Berklee College of Music, and especially by the end of the song, the outro, when it's like kicking in, it just kind of gives it a whole new sound. I'm not a big horn fan either. I don't usually like horns at all, especially like in metal, but somehow it really works. I mean, it's kind of strange, but it works on here. Also track Fire, even though that one was kind of just a basic song. I don't remember it all that well. Just seems to have like more of a, I don't know, like a devilish tone going on here. It's got more of an evil sound going on it somehow than I remember having originally. So I'm not sure exactly. I'd have to go back in and go side by side and kind of pick out what they did here. But they definitely changed a little bit of something here. It gives it a little bit different feel. I'm just trying to think what else really stuck out to me on here. Space Cowboy, or Sacred Space Cowboys, Sacred Cowboys. Yeah, that one's kind of like, I remember that being kind of like what I thought was like a Run to the Hills kind of ish sounding feel to it. Most closest thing I think he ever did that sounded like an Iron Maiden song. But this one has a more, I don't know, just the full, I keep saying that same thing over and over again, but it's got that definitely fuller and just a heavier sound. It makes it just stand out a little bit more than it used to. And then of course, like probably, I don't know if everybody's favorite, but it's definitely got to rank up there pretty high for everybody, is Tears of the Dragon. Is just an amazing song. It's always been like the highlight, like one of the biggest highlights of Bruce's career. It's always, every album I've gotten is always like, it's going to be another Tears of the Dragon on here, which is funny because it's not the longest song. It's not the most epic one. I think the opening track here is actually longer, but yeah, Tears of the Dragon just sounds great when they are orchestral stuff added in there, and I don't know, it really gave it, even though there's a couple live versions of this out there that sound pretty epic, this one kind of made me like fall in love with the song kind of all over again. So definitely a lot different sounding than the original. I don't know what happened with the original version of it, because I know that, like I mentioned, the stuff after that always sounded a lot heavier. I'm really interested in hear what they're going to do with those next two albums, but yeah, I mean, great job. I'm like super happy. That was really fun to listen to again. And there's also a couple extra tracks on here. They do a live in the studio version of Gods of War and Shoot All the Clowns, which sound completely different in their live form on here. Especially Shoot Out the Clowns sounded really different, but it sounded like a more fun, might even sound a little bit faster, but maybe it's just my imagination on that one. And Gods of War, just he sang a lot differently on the live version of it, and it was definitely thinner because it's not, the full production, but still had a very energetic feel to it. And that was kind of a nice little thing to throw on there that none of us had ever heard before, because that was and it's funny because they mark those as unreleased, but pretty much everything on here is unreleased. They touched everything up, even though the songs themselves we've all heard before. But it's kind of weird that they put Gods of War, because it's already on here. Shoot the Clowns, it's been on here as songs, so every version of these songs is unreleased at this point. It's, I don't know, just a weird little side note to mention there. But anyway, nitpicking at this point. So, and as always, I welcome anybody to comment what they thought of this album. What did you think of it originally? What do you think of it now? What's your favorites in the Bruce Dickinson solo stuff? This is actually was not one of my favorites to begin with. This version of it I think is very cool. So I know they plan on doing a couple of the other ones here, in the next year or so, and I'm really excited to hear what they're going to do. So like, share, and subscribe to keep this music alive, because I'm ready to hear what the next thing in line is for sure. I'll be waiting in line to buy it, as always, and until then, we will see you.